Offensive rankings are in the books. Now let's head over to the defensive side of things, starting things off with our edge rushers. So, quick tidbit, obviously a new background, new setting, a lot of personal stuff going on, making some transitions out west, so this is a little bit more of a temporary setup. But hey, I'm excited. I'm still gonna keep bringing you guys content as long as it's possible. And I appreciate you guys just sticking around and, checking out the video. But starting things off with the defensive rankings, number 5 through 1. Starting things off with Myles Garrett, my number 5 edge rusher heading into the 2020 NFL season. Now, obviously, things went a little awry for Myles Garrett last season. The whole Mason Rudolph situation on primetime football near the end of the game was not quite a good look, and wasn't able to finish the rest of the season due to suspension, but has been reinstated and will be able to play the 2020 NFL season. And heading into the 2020 NFL season, Myles Garrett is absolutely one of the most talented edge rushers in the NFL. The former number 1 overall pick for the Cleveland Browns has been making his, presence felt for the Browns defensive line. Even last season, in the 10 games that he played in, he had averaged at least 1 sack in every single one of those games. 10 sacks through 10 games before obviously having his season cut short. Myles Garrett through 3 seasons has over 30 sacks, 30 tackles for loss, and a number of forced fumbles along the way. So heading into this season, I think this is very well going to be a breakout year for Myles Garrett, going to help continue to improve the Cleveland Browns defense as their number 1 defensive player, their star player on the defensive side of the football. I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. Stat-wise, I think he could very well eclipse the 15 sack mark this year, put his name into the running for the Defensive Player of the Year, as well as a handful of forced fumbles and a number of tackles for loss as well, putting the cherry right there on top. Number 4 on the list, I've got the savvy veteran Cameron Jordan of the New Orleans Saints, who just turned 31 a few days ago. Cameron Jordan is one of the best premier pass rushers in the NFL, one of the key components of the New Orleans Saints defense, and one of the best pass rushers period in the NFL. Cameron Jordan put his name on the map over these last few years as one of the premier pass rushers in the league. Last year setting career highs in sacks with 15.5 sacks. This year, I expect him to be able to keep up that level of performance. I think he could very well surpass the 14 sack mark, probably about 18 tackles for loss, and a couple of forced fumbles along the way. Cameron Jordan is essentially what makes the New Orleans Saints defense work, right? His counterpart on the other side, Marcus Davenport, still developing, still coming along in Sean Payton's defense, but he's, developing pretty well. But to keep things centered on Cameron Jordan's ability to get after quarterback, to hit running backs in the backfield, and to cause a lot of disruption along the offensive line is what makes the job a little bit easier for the second and third level guys, the defensive backs, and your linebackers in the Saints defense to go out and make some plays, disrupt the offensive flow, and even get some more interceptions. Because after all, a good pass rush can help make an average secondary a great secondary, causing a lot of turnovers. And Cameron Jordan setting the edge for the New Orleans Saints is absolutely one of the most key components to the success of the Saints defense. I expect Cameron Jordan, again, around the 14 sack mark, could very well be a Pro Bowler, All-Pro type of player. Made second team All-Pro in 2019, so I expect the performance to still be pretty elevated, pretty high, even at 31 years old. At number 3, it's Neal Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings. Neal is the youngest player to surpass 50 sacks at only 25 years old, surpassed the 50 sack mark, and I don't even think he's reached his full potential, his full ceiling for his talent. I mean, the dude out of LSU has spent 5 seasons in the NFL, putting himself on the map, only made a couple of Pro Bowls, but the dude is an absolute freak beast. 4 seasons with over 10 sacks coming out of LSU. Neal Hunter is what remains of the defensive, a little bit of the rejuvenation for the Minnesota Vikings this offseason. Linval Joseph, Everson Griffin no longer going to be a part of that defensive line. Neal Hunter feeling a little bit more pressure, but I can absolutely see him having a huge breakout season. At only 25 years old, I think he still has yet to even reach his peak as far as being a pro, all-pro level player. I think this is the year he makes at least that jump into the all-pro consideration. conversation, could very well be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate because the dude is an absolute freak beast, right? Strong hands, really powerful, and an incredibly fast get-off. Makes for a lethal trio of pass rush moves that offensive tackles just can't seem to account for consistently. Neal Hunter, one of my favorite defensive players in the NFL, among a number of players on this list. I could see him surpassing the 15 sack mark this year, along with some forced fumbles, plenty of tackles for loss, and a lot of disruption coming off of the right side of the offensive line, Neal Hunter, one of the better players at his position in the NFL. And heading into the 2020 season, I expect there to be a little bit more of a breakout year for Neal, and he sits at number 3 for me. Number 2 on the list, Arizona Cardinals edge rusher Chandler Jones, one of the premier defensive players in the NFL, playing in Arizona, doesn't see a lot of TV time, not as much recognition. You could very well say he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, but even as an underrated player, was making the Defensive Player of the Year, nominations in 2019 with over 19 sacks, 8 forced fumbles. Chandler Jones has put himself on the map as one of the best pure pass rushers in the NFL. And, they even drop him out there in coverage sometimes. Technically, he's an outside linebacker with that edge presence being the key part of his game. Chandler Jones' ability to spin off of offensive tackles, put his long arms against offensive tackles and be able to break off of pass coverage and get after quarterbacks and running backs in the backfield is an incredibly, lethal combination of strength and speed, as well as just genetic cheat code, level of Madden kind of player in real life. Chandler Jones, one of my favorite players, former New England Patriot. Can't believe they traded him away, looking after all these years, how much of a star level player he has turned into. Chandler Jones, I think this year could easily still break 15 sacks, 16, 17 sacks, and likely over 5 forced fumbles. And tackles for loss, probably around the 20 to 25 mark. Chandler Jones, one of the best pure pass rushers. That's why he's number 2 on my edge rushers list. And then number 1, the Defensive Player of the Year runner-up out of Pittsburgh, it's TJ Watt. TJ Watt had over 14 sacks last season, 8 forced fumbles, and even a couple of interceptions. The outside linebacker edge rusher strength of TJ Watt, the versatility is what makes him such a dangerous player coming off of the edge. He has the ability to get after quarterbacks and disrupt offensive patterns, right? Being able to turn over the ball in all sorts of different ways, by being able to drop back into pass coverage, by being able to get after quarterbacks and forcing fumbles from running backs alike as well, makes TJ Watt one of the more dangerous players in the NFL, just narrowly being beat out by Stephon Gilmore for the Defensive Player of the Year award last year. TJ Watt's gonna have a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder. He's still got big brother JJ to look up to with his numerous Defensive Player of the Year accolades. And TJ Watt, heading into the 2020 NFL season, is my number 1 edge rusher. I think he could very well get around 15 sacks, a number of forced fumbles, probably around the 5 to 6 mark, and he might even get an interception again this year. Who knows? Maybe he'll even find his way to the end zone. He has a nose for the football. He has a nose for quarterbacks. He has a nose for disrupting offensive coordinators' game plans from around the NFL, and I expect him to continue to keep progressing, heading into year 4 of his very young NFL career. But thank you so much for watching the video. All my social medias are down in the description below. Feel free to stick around, watch some more content, subscribe, get the bell on a note every single time I'm dropping a video, like, comment, share, all the good stuff, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Adios.